Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Happy News, etc. Learning Mandarin. Wajiao CJ. Ni hao, friends. And today is my 35th birthday. I am going to be celebrating today, and the last couple of days I've been on a little mini vacation, which I'll be making a video about and uploading later this week. We're going to try to pick off where we left off. I am trying not to lose faith in my ability to do this. I'm going to keep pushing forward despite having some feelings of wanting to quit. I'm not going to. I'm going to keep trying. And I hope that whatever it is, if you're trying to do something and you want to quit, I hope that you don't as well. All right, here comes the struggle. Okay, at least we're starting today with a teacher talk, which will be a great little review.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another teacher talk. 我是 Maggie.
And I'm Chris. Today we're going to talk about a little secret that makes your Chinese sound more natural.
Okay.
And I think this is the case many times. Saying less is more.
Yeah, and to be specific, we are talking about dropping the particle 的. So this word is used all the time, but in everyday speech, we often omit it when talking about family or people we are close to.
Yeah, so specifically we're talking about the being used in the possessive sense. Right. So where it would be like mine or like that apostrophe S type of situation. So if you can master when to leave it out, your sentences will sound much smoother.
Yeah, so let's start with the easy part, when you can drop it. The most common case is when you are talking about close relationships. So the basic structure is a pronoun plus 的 plus a close person, like 我的爸爸, my father. But in everyday Chinese, it is very often to drop the 的 in the middle. So the structure becomes pronoun and then a close person directly. So I can also say 她妈妈, her mom, instead of 她的妈妈, or 我儿子, my son, instead of 我的儿子.
Yeah, so that's a pretty easy pattern. You're just removing something. And I think something interesting there is it doesn't necessarily have to be someone close to you. Like in the her mom example, it could be a person close to them as well.
Yeah, right. And there's also another thing you need to know, that for those family words that are already doubled, like mama, we just mentioned, mother or mom, or gēge, older brother, or younger sister, mèimei. You can drop one syllable.
Yeah, so instead of 我爸爸, it could just be 我爸.
Yeah, and it still means the same thing, like my dad.
Well, like Papa and
Or
Pa,
when I'm mentioning my mom when talking to my
brother,
friends, I'll just say 我妈. That's my mom. Or 他姐, his older sister.
他姐,
他哥, her older brother. That sounds more casual and it's very common in daily conversations.
Yep, using just one character is great. One warning, though, is sometimes there can be some offensive combinations with, like, I'm not sure I should say them, but combinations of ni and abbreviations for mama. You know.
Your mom.
Yeah, both ni and ta.
Yeah. I guess that's common in many languages, saying like your mother and then making some offensive gesture. Yeah, so that works in Chinese for sure.
Yeah. But 我妈, my mom, is a safe one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Omitting the 的 pattern also works for other close people, not just family. So I can say 我老板 my boss, 我老板 rather than 我的老板 or 你同学 that's your classmate or 他女朋友 his girlfriend.
Yeah, in everyday conversation, keeping the actually kind of sounds too formal.
Yeah, just drop it. All the native speakers are doing it.
Peer pressure. Okay, but here's the catch. You can't just drop the everywhere. It is still a word you need to use sometimes.
Yeah, if the word after 的 is not a person, then you must keep it. So, for example, if I want to mention my dog, then I have to say 我的狗 That's my dog. And if I'm handing Chris a cup of coffee, then I'll say 这是你的咖啡 This is your coffee. 这是你的咖啡
Okay, yeah, without the duh in these cases, it feels kind of like bad grammar. Probably, I mean, I suppose you could say it and people would know what you're talking about, but it sounds way too informal. But yeah, there's always an exception to everything that we're going to say. These rules work most of the time, but there is one exception to when you can omit the, and it is a thing, not a person that you're talking about.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that's 家 home. So when you are talking about someone's home, you can drop the 的 here. So I can say 我家在这里 My home is here. 我家在这里
Okay.
Or I can ask Chris, 你家在哪里? 你家在哪里? Where is your home?
Yeah, and this is probably because 家, as we said in another teacher talk, can refer to your family as well as your home. And so 家 is a character that sounds like it is a group of your people you care about, right? And so although it is a thing technically, it's also kind of like a collective person.
Yeah, right. So it feels natural to drop the 的 when talking about 家.
So, in summary, you can drop the 的 if you are talking about a person and if that person has a close relationship.
Yeah, but not a name. So you cannot say like 你 Chris. That's not a thing. That's not a grammar. So it has to be a noun referring to some people, not a specific name.
Good point. Good point. Yes, that would be very weird.
Right. My brother, not my Chris.
But if after the 的 there is a thing, an object, or something more distant, then you need to keep the 的, except for the special case with 家.
But what if I really love my dog?
You have to keep the 的.
Okay, fine. Well, that's all for today's teacher talk.
Yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
bàba. bàba. Next episode.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris.
我是 Maggie.
Welcome to another teacher talk. This one is all about omission, which is great news for Chinese that saying fewer words can make you sound more authentic.
That's right. And by the end of this episode, you'll be able to use just 2 words to order food in any restaurant, cafe, or buy anything in any supermarket.
Yeah, that sounds excellent, especially at first.
Okay, so we've already known the structure for counting things is number plus measure words plus a noun. For example, I can say 我要2杯果汁. 我要2杯果汁. I want 2 glasses of juice.
Right.
But the good news is, once the noun has been mentioned, in this case, 果汁, juice, you can drop it. So doesn't need to be said the second time.
Yeah, so for example, let's say you're in a cafe now and you're ordering drinks. So the waiter or waitress, they might ask, 你要几杯果汁? 你要几杯果汁? How many glasses of juice do you want? And you can just say, 我要3杯. 我要3杯.
Oh, instead
I
of
want
saying
3.
So I think this is a good example of Chinese hospitality here, because obviously you're not ordering 3 glasses of juice for yourself. But, aside from the grammar point, I think it's quite common for people to treat each other. And obviously that's what Maggie's doing in this little dialogue here.
Yeah, right.
But what you see is the waiter or waitress in this situation has used the word 果汁 for juice. And then when you reply, you don't need that word in your reply because the context has been established.
Yeah, and here's another different example. 他要一个蛋糕. 我要2个. 他要一个蛋糕. 我要2个.
Interesting.
He wants 1 cake. I want 2.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, you've already mentioned 蛋糕 once, so you don't have to say it in the second half of your sentence.
Okay, so that one's pretty easy. We're going to move on to omitting the noun when you're using the words this and that. So the structure, this or that, and then a measure word, and then a noun.
Yeah, so imagine you're at a bakery, then you might say, 我要这个面包. 我要这个面包. I want this bread.
So just like with the previous structure, you can omit that noun if it's already been mentioned. But this time we're using zhi or na. This or that.
Yeah, for our previous sentence, I can just say 我要这个. 我要这个. I want this. Or if you are at a convenience store and the product has already been mentioned, then you don't have to repeat it. Like, 我不要那瓶水. 我要这瓶. 我不要那瓶水. 我要这瓶. I don't want that bottle of water. I want this one. So in this case, the noun 水, which means water, has already been introduced. So you don't need to repeat it when you are talking about the second item.
I don't think it's
so something that Maggie already alluded to in the last one in the bakery is you can reduce to just 这个 or 那个, this or that. These 2 words can be used in almost any situation, and the context can be made clear even when the word hasn't been said yet if you just point at the thing that you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, for example, if you are at a restaurant, you can just point to the menu and say, 我要这个. 我要这个. I want this. You don't need to say the name of the dish because it's obvious that you are talking about some specific dish on the menu. Or at McDonald's, you can just point at the wall and say, 我要那个. 我要那个. I want that.
A little tricky at McDonald's because there's so many things on the board so close together, but you can try.
Numbers, right?
Yeah.
So you can even sometimes skip the 我要, the I want part entirely, and just point at something and say 这个 or 那个. It's short and efficient, gets the point across, and it's not just for foreigners who don't speak a lot of Chinese yet. I think back to my time in a university cafeteria, and I think I was probably the only person in the whole school who tried to say the names of every dish because I like food too much and was trying to practice my Chinese. But all of the Chinese students would just go, "Jega, jega, jega," and I'd be trying to say the names of everything. And they're like, "Come on, faster, faster."
Yeah. Chinese people always do the same thing. So just 这个 and 那个, this and that. And if you want to be even clearer, you can add a number to specify the quantity. Like you can just say 这个
there it is.
一个. So this one, or 那个三个, that three.
Yeah, so you see, Chinese is easy. You don't need to worry. Just use these two words and you will be all set. You don't need these long sentences that repeat the noun over and over again.
Yeah, so once the context is clear enough, you can just omit the noun.
And don't forget, 这个那个 will save you when you've kind of spaced out what the word is. You'll still get your point across.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all for this teacher talk. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Was talking with my friend about possibly going to China in 365 days. When ordering juice, if the server asks, "How many cups do you want?" you can just say, 我要三杯. Yes. Usually they should say what cups of what. Rate it. Okay. The only thing was the water bottle. I want this one, though the phrase was, I want this one, but it used the word ping. Feel it should have read, I want this bottle. Right here. That's what I was confused about.
Hello, everyone. I'm Yen.
And I'm Chris.
In this teacher talk, we are diving into so-called big cultural differences between Chinese and Western families.
Yeah, over the years in China, I've been hit with a lot of sweeping generalizations about 在国外, outside of China. As if there are two countries in the world, China and this place, 国外, which is all the other countries combined. And, for some reason, it always starts with, when I was in school, my teacher told me that, and then fill in the blank. And there's probably a teacher that never left China and just said, everyone outside of China does things this way.
Yeah, and it's funny how a lot of these myths says more about Chinese expectation than some actual Western behavior. But I think these do give us a peek into what Chinese people actually value, especially in a family. So let's unpack three big areas in this teacher talk, which is family obligation, parenting styles, and emotional expressions.
Okay, so this first one of family obligations, usually the way I encounter this is when someone says, hey, is it true that when foreigners turn 18, parents kick them out of the house and they're basically on their own from there? And I like to hit them with at least for America, 2023 census data that says 56% of 18 to 24-year-olds are still living with their parents. And say, hey, that's not even true for more than 50%.
Did you know that 56% of Americans ages 18 to 24 are still living with their parents? Yeah, they were talking about in China, they assume that Americans all leave the house at 18, which honestly I would have thought the stat was a lot higher than that. A lot lower than that, because that is normal here relatively. But now apparently the majority are still living at home.
But I think what this gets at is there's different levels of obligation towards your parents in China.
Yeah, in China, we actually have a specific word for this kind of behavior or mindset. It's called 孝顺. And the funny thing is that there isn't really a perfect equivalent in English. It basically means like being respectful, dutiful to your parents, not just emotionally, but also through some real actions.
Loyalty?
It's one of the core values in traditional Chinese culture, and it really shapes how Chinese families' relationships work here.
Yeah, I think you see that play out in two main ways. One is how much say parents have over you when you're an adult, and then expectations about the care you're going to give to aging parents. So the first one, the grain of truth in the statement above about, being kicked out when you turn 18 is I think you do have some more freedom to choose your own path when, after you're an adult in whatever country you are and whatever age you use to define an adult. Do you think that's true in China?
I would say that's actually quite different in China. So legally, you're an adult when you're 18 in China, but in real life, when you're making a lot of big decisions like choosing a major, when you're finding a job, or even who you date, who you get married, Chinese parents are very involved. And in some cases, they're not just involved, they basically take the lead. And I think most parents just feel like they have been there, done there. So they want to help you plan out your life. It's not that they don't trust you.
Yeah, I saw that play out a lot. I worked for a Sino-US college partnership program for quite a while. And in the US, we can't share any personal information about the student, even with your own parents, because of laws about privacy. And parents would just lose their minds and be like, what are you talking about?
We don't do it here.
Yeah. So that's the first part, just about parents' kind of influence over your life, sticking around for maybe forever. And then the second one is just that your mom and dad are going to be moving in at some point in the future. This might be when they retire, or, when would you say this usually happens?
I think in China, it happens when both parents in a young family are working. So the grandparents often come live with them just to make sure the older generation gets looked after. And the grandparents could take care of the kids as well. It's like a win-win situation. Like we said earlier, no matter how old you get, you're always a baby in your parents' eyes.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of jealous about this. I mean, everyone I knew had parents around to take care of their kids a lot of the time. And my wife and I were doing everything as both of our families were outside of the country. And, I just wish, maybe you'll be taking care of them eventually. But at first, they seem to be helping you out a lot more than you're helping them out.
That's true.
Yeah. And I think the inverse side of this, of what Chinese people like to ask me about when they see me and my relationship with my parents, is the idea of locking your parents away in an old folks home. The Yang Lao Yuan is an old folks home in Chinese, and only the most misfortunate people end up there. And, it sounds something like a death sentence. I don't know how you feel about this, Yan.
This has always been a sensitive topic. Yeah, I think like a lot of elderly people, they see it as being sent away. And I'll give you an example, like a little story. So in my hometown, there was an old man, never married, had no kids, and his nephew wanted to make sure that he was taken care of. And then he paid for a nice nursing home and thought he was doing the right thing. But one day he got a call from the nursing home and said that his uncle wants to see him. And then he went to visit his uncle. And yeah, when he walks in, his uncle dropped to his knees and begged his nephew, like, please take me home. So yeah, I don't think it's widely accepted in China.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd say that is a big difference. I've invited my aging mother. I said, "Hey, you can live with us if you want," and she's like, "I don't know. I want my own independence."
Well, it depends on the quality of life.
Kind of like a
100%.
last resort. I mean, her mother lived by herself till she was 99, so she made it pretty far. Anyway, the next big claim is about parenting and education, and I think on the myth way that this is portrayed is that Chinese parents are really tough on their children, but Westerners want their kids to have happy, relaxed childhoods, no pressure, just do whatever you want as long as you're happy.
That stereotype is definitely out here, and I think there is some truth to it because Chinese parents tend to be like pretty strict, especially when it comes to your schools and studies.
That's what I remember.
Yeah, I mean, I'm living in the US now, and the Chinese parents I know will sometimes ask me how many, extracurriculars my daughter is in, and just like one or two, and they're just like, "What? Only one or two?" Yeah, so I'm sure you've heard of the term tiger mom. Quite popular in America still to talk about parents that are really rigorous, but it's quite old-fashioned in China now. So what's the cool phrase in China now?
鸡娃, like literally meaning chicken baby style parenting.
And this has a really interesting origin. In the 1950s and 60s, people were injecting chicken blood into their veins in China, something called 打鸡血. There was a belief that this would give you extra energy, like a chicken running around, with all of this energy. We see them, that would be you. And maybe it does. I mean, athletes do some kind of blood transfusion thing.
Yeah, it basically means like injecting your kids with some chicken blood. Yeah, metaphorically, of course. Yeah, to bump them up for the competition. And you would sign your kids up for every possible classes, from piano to math to English drama to like skating. Yeah, all in the name of just giving them a head start, or at least just making sure that they don't fall behind.
Although this isn't universally true, I mean, certainly in America, there is kind of something people complain about here too, of everyone gets a prize, follow your passion, no matter if you're good at it or if it is practical in the future. Not so common to hear people in China say stuff like that.
Yes, hate to break it to you, but it's also true. But from what I've seen, like on the internet, like from TikTok, 小红书, I can see that things are changing now because like younger generations, they're also becoming parents and they're bringing in more open-minded and flexible ideas about raising kids. I think many of them just don't want their children to have the same experience they had.
It's really tough.
Definitely understandable. The last one is about expressing emotions. I hear the claim that Westerners directly express, I love you, and Chinese families show their love implicitly. I think the Chinese view of Americans is something like the Boyle family on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I don't know if you've seen that, Yan, but it's a family that they all just say, I love you, as a way to start and end conversations. And I think that's about what Chinese people think of Americans generally.
We usually get our impressions to American from American TV shows, so maybe it's true, maybe it's wrong.
Yeah, so I think here's the test. Would you say I love you or thanks to your mom or dad?
I've probably said like I love you to my parents maybe once or twice in my whole life. And even that felt a little bit awkward. It's not that I don't love my parents, like I love my parents, everybody, but I think we just don't usually say it out loud. I think that's also very typical in China because most Chinese family members show love in quiet ways, like cutting fruit for you, making soup when you're sick, or maybe just reminding you to put on more clothes. So I think that's our kind of
expressions
I love you.
of love are the same.
And I
It's
mean,
just
I've
the
heard from several
vocalization of
friends
it.
that their parents have
different.
made very large contributions towards purchasing houses, apartments, all of their savings. Their whole life is like, hey, I bought you an apartment.
True.
That seems pretty loving to me.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Mom. Thanks, Dad. Yeah, a lot of Chinese parents do help their children with buying a house and even, paying them fully if they can afford it. And of course, it's not just about money, right? I think it's also a way of saying, hey, I got your back, even after you've grown up.
Yeah, I think we see there's some truth to all of these. I always want to rail against all of these extreme statements and say, hey, look at me. I'm special. I don't do these things. And maybe that's getting into the, individualist, collectivist dynamic that people are always talking about in academia. And, perhaps that's why Chinese people like to make these sweeping generalizations about groups of people as well, because they're just more collective.
Actually, we Chinese like ourselves get
interesting.
labeled a lot by Chinese too. Statements like Northerners are all straightforward, Southerners love eating rice.
Yeah, I had a funny experience where I was confronted by the fact that I've absorbed this tendency into myself. My wife is from India, and we're visiting some families down there. And I said to a cousin, what do Indian people think about this issue? And he just looked at me and was like, how could I possibly answer that? There's a lot of Indian people.
2 billion.
And I went, oh, I just did it to you.
The table has turned.
Yeah. I've absorbed the Chinese essence.
So now we know that some statements, some labels, some ideas don't represent everyone, but they do reflect some common social patterns or collective experience. And it's interesting to hear them once in a while, as long as we remember that they're just reference and not absolute truths.
Yeah, well said.
And that's all for this Twitter Talk, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That was good. I enjoyed that. In China, parents usually consider their adult child independent once they turn 18 and rarely get involved in their lives. That is not true, which is surprising. We learn something new every day. I learned a lot in this one. Thank you. Well, that was a great episode. I'm glad that we did a verbal review. I feel like that's a nice way to get back into the system. I will be back tomorrow with another lesson. Thank you for being here, Saijian, Wajiao, CJ. Have a great rest of your day. Find some time to smile, and see you tomorrow.